I'm Dominic Wu, the host of the podcast. Each week, we explore unexpected connections between diverse sectors and the world of spatial AI and XR. Today, our guest is Ryan Wang. Ryan Wang is globally acknowledged as a visionary technology futurist and esteemed business executive, specializing in artificial intelligence, spatial computing, blockchain, and frontier technology sectors. He holds a distinguished position as co-founder and general partner of Outpost Capital, a great cross-border early-stage venture fund established in 2015 with a primary focus on frontier technology investment across the United States and Asia. Okay, yeah, thank you, Ryan, for joining us today.
Thank you, Dominic, for having me.
So let's talk about your journey. What's your journey of being where you are today? Can you share with us your journey?
Yeah, definitely. A quick walkthrough of my background. I was actually originally born and raised in China. I came to the States around 2009, did my master at New York University, and around 2010, 2011, started my career as an investment banker. So did investment banking for roughly 4 to 5 years with Citigroup and Societe Generale. In late 2015, I moved from New York City to San Francisco and become a venture capitalist. So really for the past decade, I've been investing in everything frontier tech, right? So from metaverse, XR to blockchain, artificial intelligence to robotics and renewable. So yeah, we have a pretty good coverage on, in terms of the full spectrum in the different sectors in the frontier tech space. Most of my investing vehicles is through a venture fund I co-founded called Outpost Capital. We started Outpost Capital roughly in early 2016, and we kind of first established our brand recognition and leadership in early stage investment in the VR AR space, and quickly we're expanding to some other sectors in the frontier tech space as well. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Oh, also starting from roughly 3 years ago, I co-founded a startup called Zebra Labs, which is a company leveraging some of the latest technology in gaming and gaming, metaverse, and AI to deliver the next generation music entertainment products.
Wow, that is amazing. And my background is design. I was born and raised in Taiwan, and I got a scholarship back in Taiwan to study in Art Center, College of Design. And after graduate from Art Center, probably about 3 years, I decided to stay here. So I pretty much knock out all the working visa and green card, transferred 2 times of H-1B and
Mhm.
green card. And I think 2 years ago, I got my citizenship.
Amazing.
So yeah,
Congrats.
it's very
I'm
hard.
sharing the pin. It's I'm from China, so the process to deal with all the H-1B visas and the immigration status has been such a pain.
Yeah, right. And I can tell you that. So that's why, if you want to know why I start all this and focusing on creator, is also like I feel like, when people are getting through this process, especially immigrants, right? I somehow, when I got my citizenship, I told myself, yeah, I want to help people who are getting through this process. And I understand that a lot of people are in the situation, especially in XR field. For example, like a layoff, right? I know a lot of people, they are on visa and get laid off. So that's why I feel like, wow, is there any way that people can find some other opportunities, or even start their own side hustle or start their new journey combined with other industry, for example, healthcare. And since I believe that XR is just a tool, right? The future computing system. So every field needs it. So that's why I am very enthusiastic. And for example, like I do Skillshare every week. And the interesting thing is that some people might think, oh, in 3 months, I want to see the ROI, right? Like how much time you put in and how many people subscribe and potentially sponsor or something. But
Right.
for me, it feels like a mission. I enjoy the process of creating a lot of content, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand that, oh, at some point that we have to do monetization or anything, but I generally just like to, every week, I just like to learn new things in XR field, and I like to share with people. So it's just, for some reason, like in your life, you kind of know that what you like to do, right? Even though a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people tell you that, oh, this is not working, you have to, you have to do a lot of different things in order to be on the right track, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I just feel like, yeah, I mean, just generally love to share. And I feel
Exactly.
excited when I see people benefit from it. I always got a lot of people reach out to me and ask me a lot of questions, which
Mm-hmm.
I feel satisfied as a human beings, but I'm still figuring out how to monetize it, because I know in probably start from last year in XR field, due to some economy recession, automation flat, the entire corporation, those types of things, or
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley Bank bankruptcy, or a lot of things that is not really good to XR creators. So that's why I invite a lot of podcasts or like guests from different fields that people doesn't even recognize them as XR, part of XR family. But I'm trying to, I don't know, sell or trying to tell them that, hey, XR can actually help your business or help your field. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like working on this, and I find out it's very meaningful. So that's me. Yeah.
Definitely. Amazing. Well, thanks for your work. Definitely, after, as we talked about earlier before we started the stream, right?
Mm,
The XR industry have been through a number of decades of
mm,
people's hard work,
mm,
right? And I think, when we look at today, it's still not mainstream yet,
yeah.
right? Um, the XR community is still a relatively small community, although this time is very different from the previous times where people at least heard about it. Most people have experienced it, right? And we can see the potential that this time is gonna stay rather than just go away completely, right? But still, like more and more people need to have a better understanding about what's going on and easier access to content, to experiences, to products as well. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I through your journey, I know that you invest blockchain, you invest the metaverse, you invest like a vehicle. What do you see the overall like environment for investor invest in, like for example, like those different fields?
Yes. So I would break down this question in two parts, right? So one is the current atmosphere for venture capital as an industry, right? And the other part of the question is how is investing in frontier technology look like compared to the overall landscape of venture capital, right? So um, for venture capital as an industry, it has its own unique cycles, right? And this cycle is has very strong tie with the U.S. economy overall. And uh, there are many variables that kind of like serving as deciding factors on whether it's a hot market or it's a bear market, whether it's a buyer's market or seller's market, right? And particularly for the venture capital industry, an easy way to understand who are the buyers and who are the sellers is that since we as venture capitalists put money in startups in exchange of the equity from the startups, right? So we can identify VCs as the buyers and startups as the sellers in this marketplace, right? And the easier way to understand is that when the economy is booming and when the interest rate is low, right, there will be abundance of liquidity in the marketplace, and there will be more money available. But on the supply side, right, on the startup side, talent side, it doesn't change so quickly. Not as fast as how money change, right? So that's why we see that since a pandemic from let's say end of 2019 to 2022, right? We see the interest rate has been super low, and there are so much liquidity in the marketplace. And during those 2 to 3 years, we see a lot of startups. Their valuation has gone up a lot, right? It's very easy to raise money, but for VCs, it's really, really hard for VCs to make investment with favorable terms for the VC side, right? So, at that point, easier for founders to raise money, but harder for VCs to invest and to get into to stay competitive and to kind of like have a sharpening edge, right? Today, the interest rate has rise quite a lot, right? And there has been conversations around how Fed might lower the interest rate in the second or third quarter of the year, but things are still looking a little bit unpredictable, especially due to the recent statistics around CPI, right, around inflation. So with this unpredictability in the future, and also the whole private market, right, liquidity in the primary market is shrinking. So we say that in general, VCs are a little bit more cautious, especially compared to what's happening in the pandemic for the past 4 years, right? And it's getting harder and harder for startups to raise money. And a lot of VCs are running out of liquidity as well, right? So, VCs are getting more cautious, and, they're taking a step back. And also, I mentioned a lot of startups, they are able to raise with very inflated valuation in the past 3 to 4 years. And today, when many of those companies, when we do a mark to market for many of those companies, right, we see the a downsize in terms of valuation as well, right? So in general, startups are struggling to raise money today compared to 3 years ago, and many startups are raising on some down rounds or flat round. Some even just can't raise money at all, right? So that's what's happening with with VC as an industry as of right now. And also at the same time, another macro trend in the VC industry is that there has been a rising activities in terms of secondaries, right? Meaning some private funds, instead of investing in companies directly, they are investing in existing VC positions in startups. And why the secondary are a hot market today? One is it's an adjustment in terms of valuation, right? So the valuation is more favorable to the buyers at the moment, right? And two, a lot of VCs are facing liquidation pressure as well, right? So let's say you have a fund and you're approaching the end of the life cycle for the fund, and you have the pressure from the LP side to liquidate the positions in your fund and get the money back to your LPs, right? So in terms of that, sometimes they need to just take a loss and liquidate their positions, right? And secondary transactions is a solution to this kind of like, liquidation requirements and demand, right? Um, so so we see rising activities in the secondary. That's like a recent macro trend in the VC industry. And the second part of your question is more on the investing in frontier technology, right? I think compared to the overall temperature in the VC industry, we do see rising attention activities in the frontier technology sector, right? Um, Particularly thanks to the rise of AI and different large language models, ChatGPT, right? That has been the most the hottest buzzword and the one thing that everybody in the world is chasing to, right? And through this trend, we see companies like NVIDIA has rise to become the world's most valuable companies, right? And also, a lot of AI startups has become, the new clubs of unicorns as well, right? So the rise in AI and the hype in AI has very much stimulated the temperature in the frontier technology investment space, and indirectly it stimulates the investment in metaverse, gaming, XR, and the other sectors in the frontier technology, right? So, for example, robotics, we see companies like Figure, right, is collaborating with OpenAI, and they are becoming the next unicorn company, and this seems to be very competitive compared to some of the established brands like Boston Dynamics, right? So yeah, I think to sum it up, the current situation for VCs as an industry is a little bit struggling, right? Due to high interest rate, due to the turn back in the industry in terms of valuation, right? And due to the timing, but the current temperature in frontier technology investment is super hot thanks to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and you mentioned artificial intelligence. For somehow, I mean, I live in Silicon Valley, Bay Area, so I always heard a lot of startup founders, more like I would say independent or very small size. They
Mhm.
told that they telling me that, right now, if you want to create a startup in AI, it's pretty much losing money. Why? Because it just costs so much just to run your own like a model. And you need to buy server and you need to get enough energy. And sometimes when you type a prompt, right? And it will run through the entire system. So if you make it free, because it's like a chicken and egg thing. You create a model and you want a lot of data. You want a lot of users to use it in order to train it. But if you make it free, it seems like just to maintain it, it costs a lot. And even like Microsoft is, it's like a lot of like a AI with kind of companies. So we thought they make a lot of money, but actually they are not really making money. Just even like a Meta, right? Recently,
Mm.
Mark Zuckerberg mentioned that, oh, we don't know, we create a great stuff, but we don't really know what to do. So we let everybody download it, Llama 3, to
Mhm.
see what we can do about it. So what do you see those like, I know investors are chasing after more like invest a lot of AI, but you see like right now for AI startups, kind of like a really hard to make money at this stage? What do you see? Maybe my information, because I'm more like creator, so I want to hear like your thoughts as an investor.
Right. I think it really case by case, right? It really depends on what the startup do. So if the startup say, hey, let's do a company that's working on the foundation models, right? Let's try to develop a new model that's more efficient, more with better features compared to ChatGPT. Then obviously, right, you need it's very high capex. You need to have build up your own data centers. You need to secure all the GPUs, right, which has been becoming more and more of the hottest commodity in the entire marketplace. And you need to spend a lot of upfront cost in order to even just set things up before you can prove anything, right? But let's say you're just a startup, you are utilizing AI to solve some existing problems, right? For example, let's say AI for healthcare, right? And let's say, in typical workflow between doctors and patients, they need to take notes, they need to take documents, they need to help some way to kind of like, facilitate the communication, right? Um, and um, and you are not reinventing the wheel, right? You are not building a new foundation model. You are using ChatGPT or Lava as your backend service, right? And you just building up the application so that it's easy for the doctors to, without having any knowledge of AI or whatsoever, is able to use this new product in their current workflow, right? So that maybe with this new product they don't need any assistant anymore, right? Or they used to need like 40 hours of their assistant time per week, but with this new product they only need like 5 hours of the assistant, and the rest is handled by the AI, right? So if that's a kind of situation, and if we can break down the scenario, right? Development cost, every startup has development cost, right? Server cost, the server usage, the cost on the server side and the cost on the API call is depends on the usage, right? And when you can charge the users for the usage, let's say if you have a SaaS solution to the doctors, and depending on the usage from the doctor side, you you charge the doctors, right? So if that's your model, then the cost is only going up when you have more customers and when they use your product more often, right? So so in that kind of example, when your company scale, the cost will go up, but just like any business, the cost will go up, but the revenue can justify the cost in doing the business, right? So it really depends at the end of the day. And if, for a lot of R&D driven type of startups, right, there are a lot of grant and credits they can apply, right? So Amazon has Amazon Cloud credits, and Google has Google Cloud credits. NVIDIA have their developer program as well. So there are a lot of credits from companies and also government grant that they can leverage. So that's some other ways on how startups can kind of like survive when they are in cash tight mode, right? So yeah, I think it's more like a case by case scenario, and it really depends on what exactly the startup founders are working on, what's the problem they are working on, what's their business model.
Yeah, thank you so much for give us like a very insightful advice. And I think what you mentioned is that usage, right? Because if you want to build a huge infrastructure, Meta, right? Meta has the leverage to build, create a data center, right? And it's not normal people, individual startup founders can do. So maybe start with like a user scenario, use cases, using the existing foundation infrastructures and build a tailored or a very niche use cases such as AI note taker for doctors, because it's doctors writing, like trying to write notes is nobody can really read it. So if there's
Right.
any like
That's a universal problem.
doctors writing, yes. So this can also help the usage and help the doctors. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is set up a really good kind of like a ways, and for government grant and also Amazon, Google, they all have grants for startups to create some interesting AI stuff. And for XR, I remember a few years ago, Ori Ingbar mentioned that XR is the interface of AI. So we talk a lot of the hype right now in AI. So what do you see that XR or spatial computing play the role in this AI hype era, and how can XR creators leverage AI and create some interesting use cases and monetize? Yeah.
A great question. My short answer is I'm very bullish on the intersection between AI and spatial computing. And here's why, right? If we look at so since the inception of ChatGPT, I think it started in they first released it in November 2022. So it's been almost a year and a half, right, since the first release of ChatGPT. And when we look into the past year and a half, the majority of things happening in the AI space has been around large language models, right? Foundational models, and what can we do in terms of what kind of applications can we develop on top of the large language models. And the majority of the applications are also based on language, right? So no matter like chatbot, or the case we just mentioned, like, you know, helping doctors to take notes, right? Or have like, you know, meeting summaries, AI assistants, right? So most of these applications has been around language-based applications. Now, there has been so many new development in terms of multimodal, right? So we see, you know, OpenAI has released Sora, right? Llama is also able to handle text to image type of capabilities, and, you know, text to video, image to video. So there has been a number of development in terms of multimodality, but the majority of the developments and discussions have been around image and videos, all this 2D medium, right? I think, you know, 3D medium is something that has been kind of like ignored by a lot of players in the industry, right? But AI for 3D is a sector that has the most exponential growth opportunities as of today, right? So, you know, large language model, we know it's a very saturated space, right? So many companies, multiple unicorns, right? All the tech giants are in that space. Text to image, text to video, image to video. A lot of established players already, but AI for 3D, it's hard to say that, you know, who is a dominating player, right? Who has the best model? Who has the best application, right? So I think in terms of the opportunity, it is an open opportunity. There are no obvious winners in this space. And why I am so bullish, one is a timing, right? if you look into, let's say, the recent conference from GTC, right, the NVIDIA's developer conference, Jensen Huang did the keynote, a 2-hour keynote, right, all by himself, which is an amazing keynote. And if you look into the applications that he has been talking about, from, let's see, Omniverse to enterprise services, different simulations, right? All these applications are 3D AI. So, some of the examples on how they've been kind of like simulating a warehouse workflow, right? They build up the model in Unreal Engine, and they kind of simulate what's going to happen when some of the cargo fell onto the ground, right? Simulation like that. They talk about how NVIDIA chip is used for some drug discovery, protein structures, right? All that kind of stuff. All those applications are in 3D, right? So 90% of what he's talking about, the future for NVIDIA, is actually in the 3D AI space, right? And if we also look into the aspect on how AI applications will be applied in the real world, right? So it's already being applied in the use cases of chatbot, AI assistant, etc., right? But what's going to be deployed from now on will be things like autonomous driving, will be a lot of perception related problems, in terms of like how AI can understand the world, can understand the depths, can do a reconstruction of the world, right? A lot of things are in terms of simulation, right? How can we simulate the real world into a virtual one, so that we can potentially solve some problems in the real world? A lot of them has been around multi-agent, right? So in a simulation, there are different agents, there are different objects, individuals, right? How different agents are interacting with each other. So in each of these directions, we are talking about a certain overlap between AI and 3D, AI and spatial computing, right? AI and a more human type of interface, right? Not through your typical keyboard and mouse or touch screen, but through different kind of motion sensors, right? Depth sensing, and some other data sets that wasn't available before, right? For example, the emotional data, or your attention data, right? Emotion data can be captured through facial tracking, and your attention data can be captured by eye tracking, right? Which are pretty established and mature technologies in the XR space, right? Apple has already integrated both facial tracking and eye tracking in Vision Pro, right? And we anticipate for the next iterations of consumer products, those will become some de facto components in the next generations of VR, AR hardware in general, right? So the validability of those kind of data sets will open a whole new Pandora box on what's possible, what kind of model can we train, and what kind of use cases can be discovered. And I think, for the next generation of entrepreneurs, these are the red ocean opportunities. These are the blue ocean opportunities, right? These are the unsaturated problems to solve. So that's why, I'm so excited and I'm so bullish on this particular intersection.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing all the hopes and all the excitement for the 3D and also AI in 3D space. And recently I listened to or watched TED Talk. There was a doctor pointed out how AI become physical intelligence through robot. And NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang also, at the end, he showed a bunch of robots coming out. And he mentioned that, and also Elon Musk mentioned that the robot, the humanoid robot with AI powered, or yeah, and those will be very low cost, probably like a 10K to 20K to 30K, those types of costs that people probably equivalent a car. So it's very affordable. And what do you see those, for example, like a lot of creators are asking like, hey, AI is pretty much in, right now is on 2D, right now is more chatbot is the most popular. Later on it will be, it's actually already happening 2D to 3D, right? So, and pretty soon it will go to from 2D screen and pop out to the real world and become robot. And what do you see? I mean, I know that you mentioned that we can all like start our startups and focusing on solving people's problem. But if everything is kind of getting a lot of stuff being taken over by AI, what do you see that human can do? Some people, for example, I interview Christopher Lafayette. He mentioned that, oh, you know, in the future, it will be community based. So, and people pretty much work for their habit or their passion, and the government need to pay for everybody like a universal basic income, and human can, for example, right now we still work, even though we are no longer working as a farmer or more like a basic stuff, but we are working more like a brain, like a labor, or I would say intellectual labor types of things. But in the future, everyone will be more creative and start their own product to benefit somebody. And maybe there will be an open source platform to collectively solve humanity's problems, such as poverty, climate change. What do you see this trend? Because if you see that AI is jumping out of 2D screen and become physical AI and human body and can do things that human can do or cannot do. Yeah, so what do you see this types of future?
Definitely. So let me articulate the question a little bit here, right? So the question is really, when AGI has become a reality, right? What's a position for the human as a species, as a unity, right? What's a position for the human species? So it's definitely a very interesting question, and I think there are so many other problems that even when AGI become a reality, that um, there are still those kind of problems will still exist, and we are still urgently need to find solutions to those kind of problems, right? So, for example, you mentioned the universal basic income, right? So, um, how can we solve hunger, poverty, all these basic problems for the human as a society, right? So that's definitely a priority. And on top of that, when AGI become really intelligent and can solve the majority of problem for us human beings, right? Then it will raise concerns. What if AGI has too much power, right? So right now I think it's a little bit too early to spend too much resource on these kind of issues. But after AGI have become a reality, right, those kind of security concerns will all of a sudden become a real threat to the human civilization, right? So I think another priority at that point is to make sure that humans have full control over AGI, right? Instead of going the other way. And other than that, there are so many other problems that's worth solving, right? So Jensen Huang recently have famously said that for the younger generations, right, he don't recommend the young generations of students to become developers because AI will become better developers, right? And I agree with him, and he kind of recommended that hey, if you are a teenager right now, um, go to bioscience, right? How to solve cancer, how to cure AIDS, and how can help human achieve longevity, right? So I think those are some of the urgent problems need to be solved anyway. And other than that, I think it's really um, goes to kind of like the Elon Musk's work, right? How human can become can become Martians in the future, right? Go to Mars and colonize the other planets in the universe, kind of situation. So yes, I think um, it's the universe is huge, obviously. And if we look into the technology revolution in human history, it's only the past few hundred years, right? So as a civilization, I believe that our civilization is still a baby, right? Maybe getting into the teenager days as a civilization, but it's still at the early days. We are still at the early days. 100 years down the road, when those people look at us, right, they will feel like, oh, what we feel like back in the days when humans just evolved from apes, right, and they are still in the process of developing a language, right? So um I'm very hopeful about the future and the potential problem that humans as a civilization can solve. And I think I embrace technology very much to trust a little bit more on the good side of the technology than than threatened by the potential downside. So that's just my personal take on this question.
Yeah, so just to summarize it, so pretty much you think that there are so many problems to solve. Maybe instead of focusing on XR or AI, this technology, maybe build some use cases or do something or solve other industries' problem, like
Mhm.
study biologies or partner. Because, for example, there are a lot of XR creators already been in this field since like 2014 to
Mhm.
early 20. I would say that maybe there's a way that they can partner with subject matter experts in other fields and create some interesting product that solve the real user problem. Yeah, so those will be another thing. And the other thing you mentioned that Elon Musk trying to bring everybody to Mars, which I think is very interesting. A lot of I would say that it's really far away, but I think he has his vision. I think Elon Musk always has 2 or 3 steps ahead of humanity because we have one Earth, and we all know that Earth eventually we will have global warming or greenhouse effect. Because if you see Venus and Mars, they are very similar to us, and their destiny is too hot, right? Or
Yeah.
like yeah, so maybe terraforming or something, doing something about the entire Earth need to reconstruct. Otherwise, you see like a CO2 or something will keep increasing, and we will eventually choke ourselves. So going out is not wrong thing. And also in space mining, there are a lot of really good, I don't know, some materials that lacking currently inside our planet. So space mining and also Mars, but terraforming Mars, it might take a long time. And also you go there 6 months and go back 6 months. It's very boring just to sit there. Yeah, so I was like thinking about, and you see like going to the moon, right? And there are a lot of conspiracies about the moon And also, yeah, like there are a lot of interesting discussion. And also, for example, like I talked to somebody who is working for space, and he mentioned that just sending out one apple to ISS, International Space Center, it costs like at least $3,000. Like they every payload they use like a weight to see like how much you have to pay. So you see like a little lightweight, it's very expensive to send out to space. So according to your like point is that, oh, for example, in Dyson Sphere, that types of different range, we are just the baby. We couldn't even directly harvesting the sun's or solar energy directly to us. We have to dig into the dead dinosaur bones like a petroleum, right? And we burn it and choke ourselves, right? So we still have a lot of civilization or a transformation to go. Yeah. So so I love to kind of keep talking about the amazing future that is almost going to sci-fi. And
It
yeah,
is
and
sci-fi. Yeah, I
yeah.
think we live in an interesting age where a lot of sci-fis are becoming reality right now, right?
Yeah, like a voice command, right? Voice
Mhm.
command in Star Trek, it was like, oh, somebody will talk to you like a real human. But right now, it seems like, even though, like when I type to ChatGPT, I feel like it's a real human talk to me. So imagine that thing can be a device, or right now it's already device AI pin, right? Yeah, so a lot of things already happening. And what do you see? Because I know you mentioned that you have invested like a blockchain experience and also like drones. Like what do you see those two sectors be in the investment field?
I think each sector will play their part in reshaping the future for our society, right? So blockchain, obviously, biggest application is in the financial service industry, right? And also through decentralization, we see a number of decentralized infrastructure type of projects start to actually, adapting blockchain technology and start to make impact, right? So especially, for the type of projects where you need a sizable network, right? And you want the network to operate on decentralized manner, blockchain is one of the best solutions for that kind of applications. Um, uh, I have certain reservations for the universal applications for blockchain, meaning although I spent, the past 7, 8 years in the blockchain industry, I'm a little bit conservative compared to a lot of people in that industry, in that I think decentralization is only good for a small for a small fraction of the total applications, right? Most of the applications are still better to be centralized application, right? Because at the end of the day, humanity is a little bit centralized, right? We are united through different nations, and we follow different leaders, etc., right? We form different communities. So there is no true decentralization per se, even though, for example, the Bitcoin network technically is designed as a true decentralized network. But again, when the majority of the computing power currently powering the Bitcoin network is a handful of companies and a bunch of mining pools, right? So at the end of the day, because humanity is always leaning towards centralization, although there are technical ways to kind of design a decentralized system, there are always other angles to make a decentralized system more centralized down the road, right? So I don't believe in true decentralization. I think decentralization is only good for certain applications, right? Like I mentioned, if we want to have a decentralized network, if we want to have like, a network with, let's say, high precision tracking with like, a number of base stations spread out around the world, right? Those kind of applications, I think it make a lot of sense. It make a lot of sense to have like a world currency on top of the uh, each of the currencies for each of the nations, right? To serve as an intermediary in the global financial system. So I think for the DeFi angle and for the blockchain's role in terms of the financial service industry, that make a lot of sense, right? For gaming and entertainment, I think it makes sense to a certain point, right? So just like how Bitcoin can serve as an intermediary between different currencies separated by nations, right? If we think about a nation is one ecosystem, then maybe one game could be an ecosystem, right? A specific game, let's say World of Warcraft has its own currencies, right? Second Life has its own currencies. Then we can use another intermediary to kind of facilitate between different transactions, between different values across different ecosystem, right? So I think those kind of application makes sense, but only to a certain extent, right? So yeah, so that's my summary in terms of blockchain industry on very high level. In terms of robotics, you mentioned drones, right? I think drones is a part of robotics, right? Autonomous vehicles is a part of robotics, and human robots is also part of robots. So it's basically some kind of machinery that's powered by certain software and operating system that can have certain level of physical presence, right? So it's just like how, let's say when we are playing video games, we have our agency in a virtual world, right? So robotics is the AI's agency in the real world, right? So it's like the reverse on how we are playing video games. It's like, if artificial intelligence is playing video games in the real world, then that's in the format of robotics, right? So it's like the counterpart of avatars. And yeah, I think, just like, how human as agencies in the virtual world can do all these things, right? We can form our society, we can have our, virtual transactions, different communities, right? So does AI, right? When we need AI to get certain job done in the physical world, right? No matter transportation, right? Take certain passengers from point A to point B, or delivery, right? We have, looking to a number of drone delivery companies that deliver cargo from point A to point B, right? Or, get things done, right? For example, help people to move or, lift up stuff in the assembly line, right? Replace the human workers on the assembly line. So all these things to increase the productivity and to help problem solving in real world, right? I think those kind of applications will always be super helpful. And the development and the future of robotics goes hand in hand with the AI sector, right? So I think it's basically a subsector in the broader AI industry. That's how I look into it.
Yeah, yeah, wow, this is an amazing talk because we are from like XR AI to the space and coming back and talking about Bitcoins and drones and atomic cars, like pretty much the entire frontier industry. And how do you think about energy? Because I heard like a, I don't know, podcast or something. A lot of companies right now is working on their nuclear power, like a factory to
Mhm.
generate power because someone interviewed Elon Musk. Elon Musk said that the future war or the future needs is not really chips, but the energy. So what do you see the energy part? Does everybody need a small nuclear power inside their home? And what do you see this new energy source or solar panel? What do you think?
Right. So um, I looked into the renewable space as well. So the answer to this question, I think there are two answers, right? One is more in the short term, one is more in the long term, right? In the short term, there is this transformation into renewables as a new energy source, right? So that the human civilization can go into a more sustainable future, right? I think the transformation is happening right now. There are a lot of opportunities for the entrepreneurs, and a lot of cases, right? The building blocks are ready to go, right? 10 years ago, the battery solutions are not good enough. The solar panels are not good enough, right? So the building blocks are not good enough. But today, they are good enough, right? And they are a good, efficient, cheap enough to for us to make the replacement, to upgrade our existing systems so that we can go into green energy, um, and our future can be more sustainable, right, down the road. And also, policy wise, Biden has signed the RRA Act roughly 2 years ago, right? A little bit, well, almost 2 years ago. And that has been creating a lot of financial incentives for traditional companies to make the switch to renewable, right? And also open up a lot of doors for startups um, to to focus a little bit more on making changes and making impact rather than the urgent financial pressure, right? So I think changes are happening, and it's happening right here, right now. It's very promising, and I think although not all of us need our standalone nuclear power, nuclear core for the future, um, but the transformation is happening right now, and it looks very promising, right? Um, um, and the long term side of the answer to your question, I think if we look into the next 10-20 years, right? um, Energy is really the end game in a technology evolution, right? Because when we look into, for example, the AI industry, right now the key bottleneck is on the GPUs, right? On the chips. But learning from history, we know that chips is always gonna become commodity, and any kind of new technology will very soon become commodity, right? Smartphone first is a new technology, 2 years, 3 years down the road, become commodity, right? Chips, commodity, GPUs, for certain time down the road, after a certain time down the road, it will become commodity. So when the new technology become commodity, what's the bottleneck? What's holding us back? What's why what's the limitation for us to go exponential, right? It's the energy, right? Because uh, um, energy, it's very costly for the current energy to fuel all these trainings on models that has billions of parameters, right? So on one hand, you can optimize on the algorithm side. You can have develop different breakthroughs in finding the more optimized loss function, right? To kind of like optimize the way on how you train the models and build up the systems. But on the other hand, is how much energy do you have at your disposal, right? So I think, in the long term, the pace of technology development will have very high dependency on how much energy is available and how much energy is at our disposal, right? So yeah, I think energy and technology in the long-term future will have more a tighter relationship and have a stronger co-relationship down the road.
Yeah, wow. This has been very inspiring talk, and we pretty much talk all the frontier technologies and also from the investor aspects. This is a very good time, exciting time that XR creators can totally utilize the current AI that large company build, and we need to integrate it and find a unique user cases and start building on top of it. So I really appreciate Ryan, you joining us today, and
Thanks for having
hopefully,
me.
yeah, thank you so much. And you will be at AWE, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I will be there too. So yeah, we
amazing.
will sync. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you
Definitely.
everybody tuning in, and see you
Yep.
pretty soon.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I see you very soon in person
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Bye bye.
later.